election process: women, elderly voters, people with disability, transgenders, and so on and so forth. We also need to rope in the polling personnel, because on the actual voting day, the identification that happens at the grassroots level is done by the poll officials, and they need to have clear understanding about what is accepted and what is not accepted within this broader parameters of ease of identifications. As we have seen, many countries are now moving towards biometric or digital identification procedures in addition to documentary identifications. So we need to have very, very reliable IT systems, because we cannot afford to have failures on the day of the election itself. Regarding the stakeholders in this entire process, the electoral management bodies, polling officials, and frontline implementers, all voters, especially the marginalized voters, it is the most crucial for them. We have all the other stakeholders in the entire election process, like the political parties, candidates, party agents, international election observers, the regulators and courts, because if there's any confusion or any dispute, then those are the bodies which eventually take over the decision making post the election. Civil society organizations and the media. And the media plays a very, very important role in this process indeed, because throughout the entire electoral process, prior to the election day, for the preparation of voter IDs, making the people aware, bringing up issues on the polling day itself, and being meaningful stakeholders and contributors in the post poll process. Next, please. So I won't go into the details. Primarily, as all of you are aware, voters identification is done through documentary procedures, that is the world over. There are two kinds. Mostly it is through various photo ID documents, but in various countries, including India, even not in India, sorry, India only relies on photo ID documents, but there are many countries which also accept, in addition to photo IDs, non-photo IDs as well. Next, please. So voter verification at the polling station. There are two types. There can be voting in person, and that is 100% identification at the time of voting. But I think some of you may be aware that while we assume and while we think that the voter himself or herself on the day of voting has to go and cast the vote, as you shall see, there are certain exceptions. For example, proxy voting, which is what India allows. That means on the day of voting, if a voter is busy in some essential services, or they are posted abroad, or they are on election duty somewhere else, and they cannot vote at their particular polling station, they can authorize somebody to go and vote on their behalf. Now, the point I just want to make here is whoever goes to the polling station, whether there's the voter, him or herself, or their proxies, there is 100% identification at the time of voting. The issue here is that we have to ensure speed and reliability. Next, please. Apart from voting on the election day, there are certain exceptions for special categories. Voting can also happen prior to the actual notified election day. For example, we have postal ballot for service voters, which is issued just after the finalization of the list of candidates. The voter doesn't have to go physically, they just post the ballot. There's home voting, which India has implemented for special categories like old age voters who are above 85 years, or disabled voters. So for these, the ballot box is actually taken to their home beforehand. And then for voters on election duty, we have designated facilitation centers. They don't actually have to go to a polling station. The point here is, as far as identification is concerned, this is the easiest and decentralized. The identification is done prior to the polling day, and there's minimal risk of any fraud, because it is all the identification is done by the government officers prior to the voting. So this is like 100%. This is like almost zero risk of any failures or frauds. Next, please. So globally, this is just a list of countries about the various kinds of identification methods they adopt. So we've already covered the photo IDs and the non-photo IDs. Mostly they are used in combination. Certain countries like Sweden and Luxembourg, they also, if a person does not have any kind of ID, then they allow somebody else to vouchsafe for them that, that they know this voter. In certain countries like Australia, this was in Australia, New Zealand, and Japan, no ID is required. They have voters list. Anybody can go and vote on the day itself. They require no identification. Uh, Germany gives a polling notification. Like they, according to the voters list, they mail a notification to the voter, and they can use that to cast their vote. Biometric, some countries have moved towards a biometric system of identification, but as I'll point out, this is always used in combination with other forms of identification. Next, please. So this is just a global map. You can see that this is electronic voter identification at polling stations. As you can see, most of the countries are in red, which means they do not use electronic voter identification. They use documentary identification. The countries which have light green in color, they use electronic identification without biometric technology. Biometric technology means either an iris scan or a fingerprint and so on. They use some other form, like they might be having like a digital voters list and so on, which they'll match the voter with. And there are very few countries which actually use biometric technology. Next, please. So this is the list of countries with use of biometric technology at polling stations. As you can see, there are very few. I think you can simply count them on the hand. And I'll come to the issues why this is important later. Next. Yeah. So this is a very interesting case study that we found about in Mongolia. So this gives a very interesting context of how the voter identification system moved from manual to digital, and this was in response to whatever the conditions that existed on the ground. So until 2008, like many other countries in the world and especially in Asia, the voter register was compiled manually, and it was a paper-based population register, and people used to go to the polling station and vote through a paper ballot. But in the 2008 parliamentary elections, there were some problems which caused some delays in the result, and it's led to a civic unrest. So to address that issue which had arisen, the parliament passed a law on automated election system, and they introduced an electronic civil register which contains personal information, fingerprints, and photos of all the registrants. Whenever an election is announced, data is exported from that civil registry to laptops. They are like the agency which is responsible for that. So they have one laptop per 1,500 voters. That means it would be, I'm assuming it would be as per per polling station, and this includes fingerprint scanner, printer, and a large screen projector. Uh, there can be if more than one laptop is required, they can use LAN connectivity. This system does not require internet connectivity, and you can understand because Mongolia, you have many remote areas, so it's data which is pre-fed into a laptop and it is locked, so there is no chance of any tampering or minimal chance of any tampering or fraud. So on the election day, when the voter goes to vote, they use the biometrics, they do a fingerprint scan. If there's a match with the registry, then the photograph of the elector is flashed on a screen, and everybody who's present there, the observers, the candidates, or the representatives, they can check that this is the person who's voted. If there is no match, then there is a fallback system. Then they check the registry manually, and if they find the match manually, the person is still allowed to vote. So this is important. This is not an exclusive biometric system. It is primarily biometric, but there is a fallback option, which is very, very important. And if only there is no match at all between the voter and the details in the registry that is there in the laptop, only in that case that person is not allowed to vote. And in the 2016 parliamentary elections that were conducted in Mongolia, about 5% were verified manually and 74% were identified biometrically. That means, like you can see, biometric is highly reliable, but there's a small gap which the manual identification, it kind of covers up to ensure that there is complete inclusive. Next, please. So, what are the challenges in using biometrics for elections? So, it should be only used where it adds value. It cannot be a magical, bullet which replaces all existing systems. If only there's a value addition, if there is like, unreliable identification system or massive fraud, then perhaps it is more valuable than in countries where the trust levels are high, and usually there is good system of identifying the voters. There has to be fallback procedures in case of risk of technology failure, especially in environments which are difficult and there are physical challenges, limited infrastructure like remote areas, mountainous areas, areas outside internet connectivity. You need to do a lot of piloting and testing. And of course, sufficient funding has to be ensured, and timely funding as well in case the system has to be implemented in any place. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah. So these are the takeaways for effective voter identification. These are the concepts which any country they can check and adapt as per their requirements. There has to be a clear-cut legal framework that must back the innovations. For example, in Mongolia, they passed an act first and then implemented the system. When the systems are put in place, there should be continuous feedback. There should be surveys and audit to kind of check the effectiveness of the system and where to find out where the gaps are. Cybersecurity and trust has to be prioritized to minimize failures and to deal with issues like data breaches and privacy. Pilots should be done before a total system overhaul. Poll staff has to be that's one of the again the very crucial link at the ground. The poll staff has to be adequately trained, not just in the new systems like whether it is digital identification or biometric identification, but also manual procedures. And they you should not throw out the baby with the bathwater, like it is commonly said. They should be thoroughly well conversed with all the identification procedures, because they ultimately have to implement it on the ground with the idea of including every voter who has the right to vote. Next, please. These are some of the identification systems which respond to global realities. For example, migration. In today's global scenario, migration is a very big issue which all countries are facing. So we can have flexible ID rules, which also take care of security concerns of any countries. Maybe you can have procedures which give a specific timeline that you have to give verify the identity and give a iCard within, let's say, 24 hours or 48 hours or 1 week or whatever, depending on what the situation is. Digital transformation and security I've already touched upon. Misinformation risks. So it is very, very important to convey to the voter itself prior to the voting day, much prior to the voting day, regarding what are the ID requirements, how to have an ID made, which are the authorities to approach for an ID, so that they are able to equip themselves with this very crucial requirement before they go for voting. Next, please. So these are some of the reasons which why ease of identification at the ballot is important. It should be designed to enable participation, especially of every eligible voter. The effectiveness of all election management bodies, they are judged by the inclusivity, whether they have allowed each person who's eligible to vote to cast their vote, and also a person who's not eligible. They should not be able to commit any fraud upon the entire election process by being able to cast the vote. Identification systems must balance. This is a very key word, balance access and integrity. The future of voter identification lies in proportionate and voter-centered design. And integrity is strengthened when systems combine simplicity, predictability, dignity, and security. Thank you so much. So I think we can invite questions before we go on to the next panel. We'll complete. Right. I'd like to invite Dr. Eva Krumpova, the first Vice President of the Czech Statistical Office, to please give her presentation and let us know about the systems that are in place in the Czech Republic.
Thank you very much, Vandita. And I would like to say that we have got a lot of command sentences in our presentation, especially on the slide 2 and in conclusions. And I would like to contribute to today's discussion on the ease of voter identification at the ballot box by sharing practical experience from the Czech Republic. But First, I would like to share with you some information related to the election in the Czech Republic. We have got approximately 10 million inhabitants. It means 8.3 voters, registered voters. We have got almost 15,000 polling stations, and we have got 500 collecting points. And what is the role of the Czech Statistical Office? Because it's a little bit different from the other countries. The Czech Statistical Office has a decentralized. Czech Republic has a decentralized model of electoral administration based on clear legal mandates, shared institutional responsibilities, and strong procedural standardization. The Czech Statistical Office plays a central role in election through its responsibility for the processing, verification, aggregation, and publication of election results. It provides the secure technical infrastructure for results transmission and ensures national-wide consistency, accuracy, and transparency of electoral data. The Czech Statistical Office performs a key legally defined function within the electoral process in the areas of collection, processing, verification, how I said. Now I would like to explain our system of identification. In our system, voter identification is not seen merely as a technical or control mechanism. Above all, it is understood as a moment of trust between the state and the citizens, taking place directly inside the polling station. Our long-term experience shows that voter identification works best when it is simply, clear, and uniform, and when it's predictable both for voters and for election officials. This predictability is one of the key elements that strengthens trust in the entire electoral process. It's the same how Nandita presented. In the Czech Republic, every polling station electoral commission is provided with a voter register prepared in advance of election day. And when a voter arrives at the polling station, they state their name and prove their identity using a valid identification document. At this point, no complex technical checks or complicated procedures are necessary. The procedures is the same everywhere and easily understandable. A voter may identify themselves by presenting a valid national identity card or a valid Czech passport or a valid diplomatic or service passports of the Czech Republic. In addition, and reflecting the ongoing digitalization of public administration, an electronic national ID stored in the e-documents application, it's now also accepted. Then it means that we should be now lightly green on the map. This development is important because it demonstrates that modern digital tools can be integrated into electoral procedures in a way that remains secure while also being user-friendly. Once the voter presents an acceptable documents, the polling station commission verifies the voter's identity by comparing the information with the voter register. After verification, the commission makes a simple note in the register identificating that the voter has voted, and the identification process is complete. It is important to stress that This is not a complicated administrative operation. It doesn't rely on sophisticated technology. Instead, it is a clearly defined legal procedure applied uniformly in all polling stations and in all elections. This consistency is a major source of public trust. From the perspective of conclusion, we consider it essential that identification rules are designed in a realistic way, reflecting real life situations rather than an ideal voter profile. The system doesn't not require additional certificates, advanced digital literacy, or complex supplementary steps. At the same time, the integrity of the system is not weakened. Identification remains personal, direct, and carried out by polling station commissions composed of independent members nominated by different political parties. Our experience showed that most electoral difficulties arise not from fraud, but from unclear or unnecessarily complex procedures. That is why we place strong emphasis on simplicity of rules, through training of polling station officials, and clear communication with public. I would like also to briefly address the role of technology. The Czech approach in this area is cautious and pragmatic. We see technology as a supportive tool rather than a substitute for institutional trust. The introduction of electronic ID through the e-document application is a good example of this approach, an evolutionary step rather than a revolution. Preserving established principles while expanding identification option. For us is crucial that election day procedures always remain operational even without digital infrastructure. Elections must be resilient, predictable, and understandable, including in exceptional circumstances. In conclusion, I would like to highlight a broader lesson that I believe it transferable to many contexts. Trust in election is not built through a single measures, but through repeated experience of a fair, understandable, and consistently applied process. When voters know what is expected of them and repeatedly experience the process is fair, voting becomes a normal civic act rather than a source of uncertainty. Voter identification is a good illustration of principle. It works best if it's legal stable, administratively simple, and implemented in a human-centered manner. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Eva. As you very correctly pointed out, technology cannot replace trust because the entire electoral system, the entire process, it runs on trust. So whether it is technology or manual, if there's breach of trust, that is, that is the issue that one has to deal with. And there's no magic solution. There's like, one bullet kind of, which will just hit the mark all the time. It has to be contextual. It has to be changing, and it has to be based on trust. So thank you for sharing the Czech experience with us. I would now like to invite Dr. Aparna Malviya, professor in Indian Institute of Technology, Mandi, to give a presentation, and she'll be focusing on the technologies related to voters' identification at the ballot.
Namaste, good afternoon. And on behalf of my team, which is led by the Honorable Officer CEO Himachal Pradesh, Officer Nandini Gupta ji, I would like to again welcome Vice President, Czech Republic, Malik. Welcome to India, ma'am. Uh, so the stage for the deeper concern before this house is already kind of set by Officer Nandini Gupta ji. And we will be we are focusing as a team on ease of identification at the ballot. And my task, because I happen to come from quote unquote technological institute, my task was to concentrate only and only nothing but artificial intelligence. Uh, so although, and to begin with, I'd like to also uh, for your convenience, and also that for the kind of questions that I want from this house for the larger debate, is that I work on the intersection of social sciences and technology. uh, so introduction, do I need to? So yes, through identification, I actually the moment I and my team actually started brainstorming on artificial intelligence and how we can ease voter identification within the context of a huge, robust, and fascinating Indian electorate, how AI can help. So I'd like to kind of share that the core idea and the motivation behind this presentation is not the technology per se, but the larger philosophy which actually is there in our constitution, and which is instituted by Article 14, Article 21, Article 19, and 324. So the larger philosophy of equality, liberty, right? So these are the motivating factor. So no voter should be denied right to vote. And how AI can help in that larger kind of sort of objective. So I mean, because this is actually a new kind of a area where we are supposed to be putting our efforts and solving the problem. I'll just skip through these. The kind of a trajectory of how we have been here, how the Indian electoral management kind of have been adopting technology. So I'll just skip through and I'll straight away come to uh, AI and ease of identification at the ballot. So as I started, the task is that can artificial intelligence offer a solution? AI assisted identification prevents exclusion, manual laborers, elderly voters, persons with disability, and it is faster than manual roll checking. So these kind of questions are there in back of our mind when we are kind of trying to figure out the problems during and about voter identification. The kind of prompts that we will be giving to artificial intelligence is will be motivated by how we can kind of sort of the problem of, as rightly pointed out, migration, manual laborers, elderly voters. For example, in Himachal Pradesh, I think we tried that rather than voter to booth, the booth was going to voters, especially for difficult terrains and 80 plus elderly population. So how AI can sort of also incorporate these facets, these humane facets, and facets that are actually politically enabling our electorate. So the yes, AI and ease of identification at the ballot. So yes, so the other facets of our or other set of questions for our reflection are voters identification delays, why there is kind of a different sets of difficulties. So voters identification delays occur because there is a manual search in printed electoral names, spelling, address mismatches, impersonation checks done visually, and other reasons which are related to the textual kind of complexity and missing documents, or there are some mistakes in the documents. So the shift there's a how we can reduce the identification time, which is kind of sometimes maybe more than 4 minutes, in terms of if there is any discrepancy or any mismatch or any misinformation or some document is missing, then there is a more time, right? So how we can reduce that time, that is out of many of the concern, this is one of the main concern, how we can minimize the time by the use of artificial intelligence. And uh, how can we learn from, although I don't think that we have any kind of country, I mean, even if there are countries who have been shifting a lot towards the biometric, but they have also kind of also been depending of course the percentage matter, but they have also been depending on the very documentational time of cross verification. So in that scenario, can we learn something from the global examples? And actually we have different kind of I should be saying feedback. So even if the countries who have been heavily depending on the biometrics and experimenting with different facets of using these kind of perspectives and these kind of techniques to, for not only for voter identification, but in other domains of election management. So for example, um, so I'll just I just kind of fascinated to come through, I mean, kind of a contradictory feedback, especially from quote unquote countries, those who and kind of say that they are mother of the democracy and all. So there also we have kind of a question that even if the countries are adopting by more a digitalized the idea of a digitalized citizen or digitalized democracy, there are also varying problems in terms of privacy breach, security breach, breach of dignity, for instance, and various issues relating to migration, right? So they have also been kind of not able to come up with solutions. So how through their kind of limitations we can be informed, and through those information we can better prepare ourselves. Yes. So challenges and concerns. So as I have, when I started, I told you and I discussed with you, I wanted to share that, the concern before me as a part of the team, as a political scientist and a student of anthropology, is not, I mean, AI per se, but the core idea, the motivating idea is to how we can kind of, in our humble ways, we can strengthen the idea of, a more strengthened idea of political subjectivity, a more powerful voter. So, from that perspective, addressing the concern of security breach, confidentiality, and privacy, addressing the objective of universality. Can we bring the digital divide and can we really reduce it to zero? It's a difficult task, but can we try? How to make data centric approach, and how we can, I mean, we have always been discussing data centric, digitalization, digital, but the core, at the core of data and the core of this this whole hullub about digitalization, the core is human being. So AI is not to AI should not be there to isolate and discriminate, but to include and engage. And how tangential and objective kind of and the feedback that we get from grounds, from villages, from towns, right, from migrant laborers, from different sets and subsets of our population, how those tangential and objective examples kind of we should be getting the motivation, or sort of say the first and second, we just give some prompts to AI. So the prompt to AI should be coming from this the feedback that we get from community at the very grassroots level. That is our concern and also motivation. And so conclusion, do we have the other slide also, Dr. Kritika? As office, am I also, do we have 1 minute, so can I just share?
Um, Yeah, we can. I think we'd like you to wind up by 3 o'clock so that the other speakers can also get the chance.
So just
So you
1 or
have
2
like
minutes.
2-3 minutes here. Do you have it on your laptop?
Yes, I do have. So Dr. Kritika, I just need your help. So can I just is it the other one? Yes, it's okay. So and I think I will begin this with a disclaimer that Professor has not actually, she has been quite a help, and I'm fascinated and really, really, really thankful, and have really seen how bureaucracy work, and they do work. They do work. So I'm really kind of I really appreciate and thankful to her. So this was kind of a exercise, and I will explain I think I should be admitting that this has not gone this my students. So I work on ISTP, which I mean which we call interactive socio technical practicum, and there's a bunch of BTech students, they are in their second year. So bachas, so they have, I have told them, can you do something about, you are just just flaunt yourself to be coming from IITs and a technological institute, so can you kind of work on a very practical problem. So I think the disclaimer is that it is kind of in a nascent stage, and the team will be working with all the questions that I have discussed before you. So this is the, yes, security, high precision, mitigation, long term. So these are kind of the basic questions for the AI proposal uh, that we will be kind of generating for a easier voter identification, considering these two set of objectives, and that definitely need kind of corrections, and it will go to at least 3 to 4 stages of corrections, deliberations, and then we will kind of come with a concrete proposal and research idea which will work for the
Thank you. Thank
yes,
you,
thank you
Doctor.
so much, thank you
Thank you,
so much.
Dr. Aparna. Thank you so much for raising the very pertinent questions which technologies, including AI, have raised today. Like you said, there are the issues. The human being is actually the core of any process, any technological process. And in the election process, for our theme, the voter is at the core. So the technology should not overtake the voter, right? So I would now like to invite Dr. Ruchi Sipaiya, professor from the National Law University, to please give her presentation on the legal aspects and challenges related to the theme.
Greetings to all. Today I'll be dealing with the law aspect of ease of identification at the ballot. That is, what are the provisions mentioned under the Constitution of India, the other acts which are made under it by the Parliament and the state legislatures, the notifications issued by various authorities, and the case laws, that is, the rulings given by the Honorable Supreme Court of India. I shall deliberate upon those. Now, first of all, that why this ease of identification at the ballot is necessary. Now, a key operational feature of credible and inclusive elections at the ballot is ease of identification. These need to strike a balance between preventing a situation where a vote can be cast more than once by the same eligible elector, and allowing without great difficulty or exclusion all eligible voters to vote. Identification practices are influenced by legal customs, the extent of existing administrative capacity, technical readiness, diversity, and the level of public trust. This is why global best practices stress flexibility, proportionality, and the possibility to fall back, and not strict uniformity. Now, the Constitution of India, which is the grand norm, it gives the power to the election commission to conduct the elections, and this therefore the Election Commission of India is a constitutional body which was established in accordance with the constitutional provisions on 25th January 1950, which vested in it the power of superintendence, direction, and control of the entire process of conduct of elections to the parliament, that is both the houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, state legislatures, whether unicameral or bicameral, and to the offices of the president and the vice president of India. Originally, when the Constitution of India was framed, we had only one member of the commission, that is the Chief Election Commissioner. But from 1st October 1993, it was made a multi-member commission, and presently, therefore, it constitutes of 3 members, whom we heard today in the inaugural session. Now, along with the Constitution of India, we have Representation of Peoples Act 1950-51, the Registration of Electors Rules 1960, the Conduct of Election Rules 1961, the Directions of Election Commission via order on 28th August 1993 for using EPIC, and other directions which are issued from time to time. Now, this order which has been issued by the Election Commission via order, this issued in 1993, for using EPIC. EPIC means the elector photo identity card, that which is mandatory to cast your vote. But suppose a person has not been issued an EPIC, then in the alternative, he has 12 other means to identify himself at the ballot. Madam has already mentioned those in her introduction. What are the identification, through how identification can be made through photo and non-photo ID. Then coming directly to the chapter 15 of the Constitution of India, which deals with the elections, the first article, that is Article 324.
Dr. Ruchi, sorry to interrupt, but I think you need
Okay,
to
okay.
align that with the
Okay.
presentation.
Okay, this constitutional provisions. Now, Article 324, which deals with the superintendent's direction and control of elections, which is given to the Election Commission. It mentions 6 sub clauses which deals with preparing electoral rolls, conduct of elections to various offices. The Chief Election Commissioner would be the chairperson, and the other members or appointment of regional commissioners can be there. It mentions the conditions of service and tenure of office, how Chief Election Commissioner can be removed from his office. So he has been given an equal stature to a Supreme Court judge, that is in the similar fashion in which a Supreme Court judge is removed, that is through impeachment process. In a similar fashion only, he can be removed. Then whenever the governor or the president of India is requested to give the staff, then the same officers shall provide the staff to the Election Commission. Now, what is important here is that the Constitutional 19th Amendment Act 1966, it played a major role, and earlier tribunals were constituted to hear the election petitions. But this Constitutional 19th Amendment Act 1966 nullified the tribunals in India and instead gave the power to the High Court to hear the trial of election petitions. And this abolition of tribunals gave a major power to the High Courts. And once all the election petitions directly came to the High Court, once the decision was made by the High Court, if the person wants to go in appeal, then it can go to the Supreme Court. But first, it is now will not be heard by any tribunal or any other authority, but only by the High Court. Then, under Representation of Peoples Act 1951, also that was also modified, and it rendered the electoral tribunal's appointment and authority null and void, and a special provision concerning the ability to appoint election tribunals for adjudication of uncertainties and issues coming out of or concerning elections to parliament and legislatures of state was eliminated. Now, Article 325, it says that there shall be one electoral roll for every territorial constituency. But this article was absent when the draft of the Constitution was made in 1948 and was introduced by the drafting committee chairman on 16th June 1949, with an intention to eliminate any possibility to have a separate electorate for minorities. And that draft article was adopted on the same day without any debate by the Constituent Assembly. Then Article 326, it uh, it gives a right to elections to the House of People and to the legislative assemblies to be on the basis of adult suffrage, that is, to vote. A person should be a citizen of India, must be of 18 years of age, must not be disqualified under constitution or under any other law on the ground of non-residence, unsoundness of mind, crime, corrupt or illegal practice, etc. Now, what is important here is that the Constitution's 61st Amendment Act 1988, it reduced the age of voting right. Earlier in the constitution it was mentioned 21 years, and this amendment brought down the age of voting from 21 to 18 years. Also, before this constitution was adopted, the Government of India Act 1935 gave voting rights to people, and in that universal suffrage was not given. All women were not given right to vote. Only a handful of women were given right to vote, depending upon whether they owned certain property or not, or whether they were literate or not, were they wife or widow of a person who owned the property. But when this Constitution of India was adopted, universal suffrage was given. So when the first elections were held in 1951 and 52, all kinds of women voted in that general election. Then,
Paya, 5 minutes to
okay,
wind up,
okay.
please.
Then
just-
under Constitution of India, Article 14, 19, and 21, which are also popularly known as Golden Triangle of Constitution, they also when the Supreme Court time and again have interpreted these provisions in favor of how to smoothly run the elections. And 14 talks about equality before law or equal protection of law, and 19 about freedom of speech and expression, and article 21 talks of right to life, liberty, and the procedure established by law. Now, under Article 19(1)(a), this freedom of speech and expression significantly relates to elections by guaranteeing voters the right to receive information, form opinions, and express themselves, making the right to vote an informed choice crucial for democracy. While 19(1)(c), freedom of association, enables political parties to and other groups to function, though all are subject to reasonable restrictions under Article 19, Clause 2. Now, these rulings are linked with voter information access, like candidates' background, the funding they are receiving, and this article emphasizes informed voting for good governance.
Dr.
Article
Sipaya, since we
21.
have two other speakers, so if you can just take 2 minutes to
Yes,
wind up,
yes.
please. Thank you.
Now, through Article 21, we have got the right of nota, that is none of the above. When you are voting, one of the option is that if you don't want to vote for any member, then you can click on the nota also. So Article 21 enables this environment. There are certain uh, case laws where the term election has been interpreted by the Supreme Court that the election word means the time when that the elections are notified and the time when results are declared. That time period is known as the election. Then there are other cases where the secrecy has been defined, that is, in direct elections secrecy has to be maintained, but in indirect elections, that is when Rajya Sabha elections are held, secrecy need not be maintained. Then there was a question about the EVMs and VVPATs. So Supreme Court has held that 100% match or tallying of VVPAT with EVMs is not necessary. If that is done, then it would mean that we are not trusting our election system. So yes, randomly some can be tallied, but all 100% VVPATs will not be tallied with the EVMs. So with that, I would like to thank all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sipaya. We would also like to welcome on stage Judge Ahmed Abdulazim Abdul Hamid Matar from Egypt. Very welcome on stage. They like to just give a warm welcome from everybody's side. I would now like to invite Dr. Nagendra F. Honahalli, the National Level Master Trainer from ECI, to give the concluding presentation.
Namaste, honorable dignitaries on the dais, delegates from abroad, and participants, and my dear NLMTs. First of all, I thank Election Commission of India and IIIDEM giving an opportunity to reflect on certain issues to the NLMTs in each and every session. The task given to me is the ease of identification at the ballot. So many dignitaries, they've already spoken on all relevant issues, including the technology and the AI aspect and the legal and constitutional aspects also. With this little background, nothing much to say, just to reflect on few ideas which I know, which I worked in the field. As you all know, elections are the core components of any democracies in the world. Elections have retained the faith of the people as they are conducted in most efficient and transparent manner. That's why people have the faith and they have accepted the very process of elections. The scope of election is expanding in terms of its inclusiveness and recently the adoption of technology in the recent past. Elections is a cumulative effect of various components. We cannot say that one aspect of election is important, the other is not very important. So each and every aspects and the components of the elections are very, very important, like preparation of a very healthy electoral roll, setting up a polling stations, conduct of training to all the stakeholders, systematic in the Indian experience, the sweep activities to create awareness among the voters, and the preparation of commissioning of the EVMs, which is a new addition in the recent past, and conduct a poll and final counting of votes, and finally, the return of candidates. So, among all these important components, the identification of voters, which is the current topic now, becomes important, crucial task on the day of poll. It's a symbol of instilling a faith and trust of the people in the system by identifying the genuine voters and allowing them to exercise their franchise and to ensure that the poll is conducted in a free and fair manner. So, the core components of this theme is the identification of the methods to identify voters in a most systematic and quick manner. In a manual system, we have to see, when Madam has shown the physical ballot papers, so to search the name, and you are also in the Indian context using the voter slipper as well to help that aspect. So the question before all of us is to identify a method, which method is most suitable for conduct in a given situation. And second would be the use of multiple identity cards with the photographs to identify voters. So, what kind of documents, what kind of identity cards we require to identify the voters would be one of the important aspects. And in the recent past, the world is moving towards these technological things. So, what kind of relevant technology we can adopt, we can think of developing to identify the voters. Madam has already talked about the AI aspect in this regard also, and development of a legal foundation. So whatever you do, whatever the innovation we do, it has to be supported and vetted by a legal authorities. Otherwise, it will lead to multiple litigations in the court. And another important aspect, development of institutional design. So what is said and done, finally it has to be implemented through the institutional authorities, like training programs to all the stakeholders and creating awareness among the voters and the poll person, and finally the political parties. And compared to today's situation, even the political parties, the candidates are more informed. It's not like the previous years where they're not knowing much about the process. Nowadays, the invent of the internet and with the literature available, whatever we officers know, in fact, more than we, they also know the things. There it becomes more challenging task for us to conduct an elections. So why this theme is so important to discuss and deliberate upon these things. One is the avoiding the impersonation. Even the smallest, as we all discussed in length about the trust and acceptability and the authority. So even the smallest of the small percentage of ineligible or bogus voters, allowing them to cast votes by their deceitful ways, will itself pose a big challenge to the whole process or the whole electoral process. Hence, it needs to be addressed and very suitably. The second aspect would be development of suitable and reliable technology. The honorable people on the dais have discussed a lot about the technology, what kind of technology we need, and how we should go about it. So, development and adopting a new technology to identify the voters by integrating the existing system through APIs. Like in Karnataka and in India, we have developed so many through APIs where integrating so many details about the citizens. It must be sustainable, it must be cost effective, reliable, and user friendly. Any technology should not create a hassle to the voters. It should be a smooth moment for them also. So it must have an ability to perform large, complex tasks accurately in a more shorter time compared to the time taken to undertake the same task manually. So who are the stakeholders involved in this? So obviously the voters, the political parties, the poll personnel on the election machinery, and importantly the civil society also. So the global trends and emerging patterns, the international delegates also they have talked about the even CEO Madam has also talked about one Mangolin incident. The JEC also have said something. So the global trends are different depending upon their conditions, their socio-economic background. So it lists that the most of the countries do have one or the other photo identity cards as mandated documents required for the identification of the voter at the time of polling. That list includes the identity cards, personal identification numbers, bio identification systems, digitized photography, barcoding, passwords. A number of methods are being adopted. Recently, this electronic voting system have become more widespread and more automated in some countries. It becomes all the more crucial to ensure that only eligible and authorized voters cast their votes. So you all know that the digital theft and frauds are becoming more rampant in the recent past. So in this regard, a high levels security of data must be ensured. Demonstrable security levels are to be in place to make the election process more transparent and trustworthy. This is how this aspect becomes more crucial for this August gathering to deliberate, and I think it's a beginning so that we can come out in the days to come a very suitable and reliable technology helping all segments of the society. So the best practice, I being an NLMT from India, so Indian case, I can put forth
Dr.
this
Nagendra,
gathering.
sorry to interrupt, but since we have another speaker on stage, maybe can I just request you to take
Yes,
5
sure.
minutes more?
So India being the largest democracy in the world, so generally in India, the EPIC cards, as Madam has said, EPIC and the other cards most predominantly used in the election process for identifying voters. And to make it more adoptable, the Election Commission of India has also allowed 12 letter-led documents, which CEO Madam has already discussed in her presentation. So, in addition to those things explained, the election management bodies and voters, along with the political parties, have accepted and they have cooperated with this process in India. So, what are the key learnings from this? It has really increased the voter turnout and not much issues. In the morning, what you said, there are no cases of repoll in India. So, this system has been accepted and it's really doing well. And hopefully, in the days to come, the new technology would really help the existing process. And this regard, I thank all the dignitaries for giving me an opportunity to reflect on certain issues. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Dr. Nagendra, for that overview of the systems that exist in India. I would now like to invite Judge Ahmed Abdulazim Abdul Hamid Matar from Egypt to please give their experience about the Egyptian. If you're comfortable sitting there, that is perfectly fine. I would request the translator to please assist Judge Ahmed in making his presentation. Judge Matar represents Egypt.
أولا أشكر مفوضية الهند على حفاوة الاستقبال وعلى تنظيم هذا المؤتمر.
At the very outset, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to the Election Commission of India for giving us chance to take part in this important gathering.
وبعتذر على التأخير لانشغال المترجم مع السيد القاضي رئيس الهيئة.
And please forgive me, I delayed in my presentation because the translator was busy with my boss.
بالنسبة لهيئة المفوضية الانتخابات في مصر، بتتكون من 10 قضاة من أعلى محاكم قضائية في مصر.
And election commission in Egypt is different from the other parts. In Egypt, the election commission is consist of 10 judges. They are selected by the Supreme Judicial Council.
وبيتم انتدابهم من محاكمهم لمدة 6 سنوات ولا يتم تكرارها مرة أخرى.
And they are deputed for 6-year term, and after that it is not repeated.
بالنسبة لعملية القيد للناخبين في مصر بتتم بطريقة تلقائية بمجرد بلوغ الشخص سواء رجل أو امرأة سن 18 عام.
And registration of the voter in Egypt is automatic. When a man or woman reaches 18 years of age, he can register directly to the database.
وبترد للهيئة أو للمفوضين بمجرد استخراج تحقيق الشخصية بيانات جميع من بلغ سن 18 لإدراجه في قاعدة بيانات الناخبين.
And they have to take the certificates from the government offices that they have reached to the 18 year of old age.
تقوم الهيئة بعمل قاعدة بيانات بجميع الناخبين وبيتم تجديدها تلقائيا كل 3 أشهر.
كل سنة؟
كل 3 أشهر. 3 months.
3 مرات.
3 أشهر.
13.
4 مرات في السنة.
And this electoral roll is revised by the election commission every 3 months.
تقوم الهيئة باستبعاد ضباط الجيش والشرطة من قاعدة البيانات ومن يثبت عدم توافر الناحية الصحية النفسية.
And this electoral list does not include the officers, army officers, and those who are disabled.
وبعد الإعلان عن الانتخابات الهيئة بتقوم بعمل كشوف للناخبين ويتم توزيع جغرافي على جميع أنحاء البلاد.
And after declaration of the election, the election commission gives list to the different areas so they can see their names are there or not.
بحيث أن يكون كل مركز اقتراع لا يزيد عدد الناخبين فيه عن حوالي 5000 ناخب.
And at every constituency and every booth, there should not be more than 5,000 voters.
وعن كيفية التعرف عن الناخبين أثناء عملية الاقتراع يجدر بنا أن نقول أن مصر من الدول قد تكون نادرة أن العملية الانتخابية تخضع جميعها للإشراف القضائي. إشراف القضائي القضاء.
And identification of the voters. And Egypt is different from the others, and it is done by the judges.
بيتم انتدابهم من أعمالهم أثناء عملية الاقتراع.
And they are deputed, they are taken from the courts during the election time.
بحيث يكون في كل مركز اقتراع أحد أعضاء الهيئات القضائية.
So at every booth you will find some member of the court.
وده أمر شاق بالنسبة للقضاة مصر جميعا.
And it is a very difficult for the judges in Egypt.
لكن جميع القضاة بيعتبروه واجب عليهم.
But judges, they think that this is a national responsibility, so they do it.
بالنسبة للتحقق من شخصية الناخب في مصر يتم التحقق عن طريقين: تحقيق الشخصية الهوية وجواز السفر باسبور.
And we check the accuracy, the identity of the voter by 2 ways. One, he has to have his card, national card, and second, passport.
لأن طبعًا جميع المقيدين في قاعدة البيانات بيكون مستخرجين بطاقة شخصية أو هوية شخصية.
And those who are registered in the database as a voters, they get the card also, like we have here in India.
بتُعَد الكشوف يُكتب بها الاسم ويُترك رقم ويُكتب حوالي 10 أرقام من الرقم الخاص بالهوية، ويُترك رقمين فقط يتم التحقق منهم من السيد القاضي بمجرد دخول الناخب. بيطلع على الهوية الشخصية ويتأكد من الرقم ويستكمله داخل الخانة الخاصة به.
और जो the voter list which is prepared, it has the name and identity card number, and number is of the 10 digit. So they write only 8 digit, 2 digits they don't write. So when the judge checks him from this, he can ascertain that he is a true voters.
يجدر بنا الذكر أن قاعدة بيانات الناخبين في جمهورية مصر العربية في آخر انتخابات، وهي تقريبا لم يمر عليها أكثر من أسبوع، اقترب من 70 مليون ناخب.
And in Egypt, just 1 week before, we conducted the election, and nearly 70 million people voted, took part in election.
هذا الرقم بالنسبة للهند يعتبر ليس كبير.
For you, it may not be a big number.
لكن في أفريقيا والدول العربية اللي بتشرف بالانتماء ليها ده يعتبر رقم كبير جدا.
And in comparison to the African nations and Arabian countries, it is a very huge number.
لكن بالنسبة للهند أكيد صغير.
And I know that in comparison to India, it is a very small number.
وإحنا سعداء بالاطلاع على التجربة الهندية في الانتخابات، لأنها بتتمتع بسمعة وعريقة وفي الديمقراطية، وبنتطلع دائما للتعاون معكم إن شاء الله في المستقبل.
And I am very happy to take part in this conference. I am here to learn from your experience, and we know that you have very vast experience in conducting the election. So I am here to learn from you, and I would like to thank you all.
وفي فرصة حالا اتحققت إن أنا أعرف حضراتكم على معالي القاضي حازم بدوي، رئيس الهيئة الانتخابات اللي أشرف على أصعب وأطول انتخابات جرت وهي الأخيرة وتجاوزت 100 يوم. سيادته موجود معنا.
And the Chief Election Commission of Egypt, Judge Hadim, who is in another, he has supervised the most difficult election in Egypt this year. And he is taking part, and it continued for 100 days.
سيادته موجود هنا. اتفضل.
And
اتفضل فندم، اتفضل فندم. تعرف على سيادتك بس. تعرف على سيادتك بس شوف سيادتك.
Chief Election Commissioner of Egypt, Qadi Hazim al-Badwi.
سيادته أشرف على أصعب انتخابات مرت في تاريخ مصر حقيقي.
He has supervised the most difficult election in Egypt.
وأنا وسيادته ننتمي إلى أكبر محكمة في مصر وهي محكمة النقض المصرية.
And myself and His Excellency, my Lord, we belong to the Supreme Court of the Egypt.
شكرا فندم. شكرا فندم.
Maybe please request Judge Badawi to please say a few words.
هم يريدون أن تلقي بعض الكلمات.
اتفضل فندم.
Please welcome, and we would really the panel here and all the participants.
ونتشرف أن نستمع إلى كلماتكم.
أنا برحب بيكم طبعا، وأنا لسه كنت عامل كلمة فوق في المؤتمر.
I also welcome you in this session, and I delivered my speech in the second level.
يمكن أحمد بيه كان شرح التشكيل بتاع الهيئة.
And Qazi and this judge, Mr. Ahmad, he might have explained to you how our election commission is formed.
طبعا احنا عندنا في مصر القضاة بيحظوا بتقدير واحترام من كافة أطياف الشعب.
In Egypt, judges are respected by all member of the society, all segment of the society.
وبيثقوا ان اي جهة بيشرف عليها قاضي بيثقوا ان بيبقى ليها مصداقية.
And they have trust in the judges that they can do impartially.
كمان انا كنت عايز اقول ان التجربة المصرية في التوعية والتثقيف، مش عارف احمد بيه تطرق ليها ولا لا.
And I would like to tell you about how we educate and create the awareness among the voters. I think our colleague has said, but he has not told this.
الهيئة الوطنية للانتخابات مع دورها في الإشراف على الانتخابات والاستفتاءات، الدستور كمان اداها دور توعية وتثقيف الناخبين والأحزاب والائتلافات السياسية.
And our constitution, as it gives the right to the citizens and for the voting and other things, it also gives us, tells us to do for the education and encouraging the voters to come out and vote for.
على مدار العام السابق قبل الانتخابات الشيوخ والنواب كان لينا قوافل توعية سواء في المدارس للنشء.
And before the last election for the parliament and the senate, we had the caravan that went to the schools to educate the children.
وأجرينا محاكاة وعملية انتخابات بالفعل بين التلاميذ في المدارس.
And we did them, we presented to them how to vote in front of the students.
كمان رحنا الجامعات والأندية مع الشباب.
And we went to the universities and clubs.
انتقلنا احنا عندنا نسبة أمية في مصر، انتقلنا للنجوع والقرى، كمان قعدنا مع أمهاتنا والشيوخ الكبار.
And you know we have illiteracy in Egypt, so we went to the villages and we met the illiterate ladies and old people.
والقوافل بتاعت التوعية دي كان ليها أثر كبير في زيادة نسبة المشاركة.
And it resulted that the participation in the election increased.
عندنا الانتخابات الرئاسية الماضية نسبة المشاركة فيها حوالي 45 مليون 66%.
45 مليون 66. And participation in the last presidential election was 46%, 46 million 66% of the voters.
انتخابات النيابية كانت نسبة الإقبال فيها حوالي 25 مليون وحوالي 32%.
And in parliamentary election, there were 25 million people voted, and it was 32%.
ثقة الشعب في الإدارة اللي بياخدها قضاة أدى إلى زيادة نسبة المشاركة بالفعل في الانتخابات.
And people trust the judges. That is why they have come out in large numbers.
طبعا أنا سعيد إن أنا جيت الهند بعد ماراثون شاق من الانتخابات. ماراثون شاق مدة طويلة.
And I came to the India after I went through rigorous process of the voting in Egypt.
وإن شاء الله نستفاد من التجربة الهندية وكمان لكل الدول المشاركة.
And God willing, I will take benefit of the India and all the participants in this conference.
وإحنا طبعا مستعدين للتعاون مع الجميع.
And we already ready to cooperate with everyone.
شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Judge Badawi and Judge Ahmed, for a very interesting presentation. Thank you. Of course, the fact that the judiciary in Egypt is the one that is at the forefront of conducting the elections, that is a new piece of knowledge, especially for me, and it is reflective. And it is reflective of the high level of public confidence that the judiciary enjoys. So I think we can open the session for questions now. I think all the speakers, they have had their say. So any questions, please do go ahead. I'm sure the audience here has questions for Germany or the Czech Republic, because
how do you do the deal the impersonation issues in voting in Czech Republic? Impersonation voting in Czech Republic.
Yes, we have got a secret voting, because we just only check the ID, and then we put the ballot paper into the envelope and put into the box, and it's without the identification. Then it protected the voters as well.
Whether you validate those documents or not. If someone is producing an ID, whether you check it is original or not, it is valid or not. See, because why I'm asking this question is we have the same system of checking here also. The voters are allowed to produce 12 type of documents in India, and once they produce the document, we confirm the identity. We are also confirmed by the polling agents sitting in the polling area and polling booth. By this way of checking, we allow the voter to vote. Right. See, still we have a system of tendered ballot paper like the one. If somebody is claiming that his vote is already been voted by someone else, okay, he has been allowed to vote by some. We are giving physical ballot paper. There is a system still for that, but still it is not 100% proof, right? If I am the voter, I'm planning to vote in the cast my vote in the booth. If the polling officer says the vote is already been cast, I feel disappointed. No, that tendered ballot paper is not also counted by the system. So, as Madam said, there should be a system to validate the documents produced by the voters. It is very difficult, right? We are producing 12 documents, right? Validating all those documents is impossible in India. But in future, some system should be there to avoid that impersonation. Whether that is being done in any foreign countries like Egypt or in Republic. Yeah.
Okay, I try to explain it in my contribution, but because we have got a register of population, and then the election committee get the list of the inhabitants in their district, and then after they check the ID, they put the dot on the list. Then it's not possible to go there double or triple or some other else in one voting. Then it's maybe it's simply then I couldn't see the problem of this.
Maybe that is maybe due to your demography it is possible, but it may not be possible for us in India. But it should be done in the future, because even a UPI transaction takes a few seconds to confirm the identity. There should be a system in the future to identify the document also. That will give us a 100% foolproof system of voting. Thank you.
In India, I think you're well aware that apart from the document itself, we have a photo electoral roll. So we have to match the name of the voter and his photo with the actual voter that is coming there. So that is one issue. Now, I think in India, the problem is complicated. Like earlier, we spoke about the level of trust that is there between the citizens, and the administrative machinery. It's also further complicated by the sheer size of the population, because if you have thousands of people coming to vote in one polling station, there is a limitation, about how much alert the polling staff will be as the day wears on. You have to put the ink on their fingers, you have to check their ID, then you have to make sure that the queues are moving swiftly and so on. So the level of alertness, I think, over a period of time, that's a human, that is human fallibility. But I think that the way the ECI has dealt with it is to try and make it as decentralized as possible. And as per the latest norms, not more than 1,200 electors will be there at one polling station. If there's more than 1,200 electors, there'll be an auxiliary polling station. So that automatically, gives more time for the polling officers. It reduces the number of voters who are actually queuing up. So so there are various ways. There is no one solution to any of these issues. So we're trying to, that is, I think, in places of very high population like India, or let's say Egypt or whatever, I think there's decentralization as much as possible.
Good evening, ma'am. My name is Raghavendra. I'm an NLMT and Joint CEO from Karnataka, ma'am. My question is that looking ahead in future, whether the remote and online voting will redefine the identification of voters. I mean to say that whether it is a barrier or a safeguard.
Very interesting question about online voting. So, the little time that we got to research on this topic, there is only one country in the world which is actually the gold standard for online voting, and that is Croatia. It is the only country in the world in which they have full online voting. There are other countries which have introduced it in some small measure. It is not for perhaps the national elections. For example, I think in Canada it is for some municipal or local elections. Similarly, in France also it is for I think some precinct elections and so on and so forth. Now, the issue with online voting is that you have to have 100% reliability on the digital backup infrastructure. I think all of us are aware that whether this 100% reliability is achievable or not, I cannot say. Perhaps Dr. Malviya will be able to shed more light on it. But if we let's say move away from elections, there have been data breaches in almost every aspect of IT. Whether it is online purchases, or whether it is online search engines, or whether it is banking, whatever. You have there. In Hindi there is a saying, "Tu dal dal mein baat baat," means the more secure you make something, the more you innovate. There are some people who will automatically be one step ahead of you. It is a continuous process. So I don't think that it can ever be 100% reliability. We can only strive to make it as foolproof as possible and continually keep updating and upgrading. Now, I found the reason I put the Mongolian experience here was I found it very interesting that they put, let's say 1,500 voters. They put all the data in a secure laptop. And I'm not a technological expert, but I'm assuming that perhaps there can be some security protocol so that the laptops are not hacked, or if they are hacked, there is some alert and so on and so forth. So, in fact, I was just discussing this with my team that we were wondering if it ever can be piloted in India. That you have every polling station. I was thinking that perhaps we can make Himachal a pilot project. We have 8,007 polling stations. And if we go by this, I think it will go up to 834 or more if once the new guidelines regarding the 1,200 voters per polling station are implemented. So if
The airport. So why can't we introduce that as for voter identification also, making use of the technology?
Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. Only thing is that I think because the election process is so sensitive that we have to make it as foolproof as possible. Now, I'm not sure DG Yatra enjoys the same kind of sensitivity that the electoral process is there. I mean, I'm certain that they are very secure.
Option.
Yeah. So, I actually think in the Indian context, I think this laptop per polling station, this is my personal view, of course. I mean, I'm obviously, as and when we get inputs from the experts, it will be more interesting to learn about it. But I personally think that this laptop per polling station with locked data, I personally think that this is something that is workable. Like the way it is in Mongolia. And like I said, Mongolia is a country, perhaps it may not have the best IT infrastructure. It may not have internet connectivity to all the places, which is the same problem that India has. So something like this, if we take EVMs, we can take laptops as well, or every polling person can have a laptop and just match the idea of the person with the this is my personal view, of course. But you said Digi Yatra, yes, but we need to do pilots, like I mentioned, that you need to do the pilots to find out where are the gaps and the weaknesses, so we can make it foolproof. I personally find that polling with a laptop per polling station something that is less prone to hacking or any kind of failures. But that's my personal view. I'm sure experts may enlighten us more on that. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And that is only because of the sensitivity of elections. Like if some impersonator goes and flies from India to London, that doesn't cause as much sensitivity as a single voter who was not eligible to vote putting in a vote, because that creates a lot of trust issues, and it has impact on the entire democratic process. So
Village people find it very difficult to cast their even in our state we are doing the old age pension schemes. We use fingertips. No one, the fingertips won't be the fingers are not, that won't match, right? So they have problems too. So biometric system is not 100% proof.
system is 100% proof,
Yeah, yeah.
but like we said, we have a kind of a bouquet of solutions. Like I talked about home voting, so there is no EVM. You have a the
Yes.
paper ballot. The box is taken like in the old times, or the service voters, or the postal ballot. So there, or those specific designated centers, you have an old fashioned box in which you have the paper that ballot. You mark it whichever way and you post it. So like I said, no magic bullet. There is no magic
Yeah,
bullet
that's
for
why we
this.
have
It has to be contextual.
Yeah, that's why you have a system of postal voting and the home voting things there. We are keeping on evaluating, right? Yeah, that's nice.
And fallback systems, yeah. That is something that we will be definitely looking into in a course of our research. But I think global standard in the sense of like the eligibility to vote. That is, I think it will be the same all over. And in India, it is 18. I don't know if but I do know that in Germany, in some local elections, not the national elections, in local elections, it is 16 plus. So whether that is suitable to a context, it has to be contextual. It depends on like what is the legal definition of an adult in that particular country. Then what are the other eligibilities to vote? Like of course you have to be a citizen, but I think in some countries, I think even somebody who's not a full-fledged citizen but has a residence or something, I think they have some limited voting rights in local elections. And also we'll have to see the context and see that is there. Global standards, I think, for IT systems, I think that is something that we can, certainly try to emulate. But countries like India, which have very varied topography, varied levels of IT infrastructure, we will face some challenges. But like I said, then we can have a different system over there to make it all inclusive.
Good afternoon, ma'am. This is Professor Chanchal Kumar Singh from National Law University, Shimla. I would like to make one comment that there are a lot of emphasis on technology and how technology can lead to the identification where the individual is now said in philosophy to be reduced to the status of individual, no longer individual. And then the talk of ethical and philosophical sayings about dignity of individual comes down to the authenticity of data. Or so individual is reduced to the data. I just take 1 minute. Ambedkar had opposed, and that was the decision that was enshrined in 79 and Article 80, which provides for, and subsequently the RP Acts, first past the post system. That was a historical contingency or dependency on British rule for India, particularly. It was not debated. This voter identification and voter registration, that has to be a correspondence in respect of documents. And I appreciate Ms. Yuva and Ms. Nandita, where you said that technology cannot supplant, but it can be a supplement. It cannot become institution itself or institutional trust. So my question and query is how far the electoral practices in India of identification of voters at ballot booths are related to election registration of electors rules 1960 perhaps? And can there be correspondence, strict correspondence? Because it was amended perhaps in 2021 to add Aadhaar biometric. So again, we are moving towards that. Thank you.
Okay, so as far as I understand, I think there is 100% correspondence between the registration of the provision and the registration of electoral rolls, because the electoral roll is made on the basis of the provisions given in the rules. To the best of our knowledge, we cannot breach any of those rules. So those rules give the entire eligibility as well as the process of registration. So that is what is followed. Now, your specific question was for Aadhaar, whether you can use Aadhaar as for identity, right? Yeah, yeah. So can I address that particular issue, please? So I think here the context is different. What the specific context in which the Supreme Court had to intervene was not the normal process of making of the electoral roll, but the special intensive summary revision, right? So I'll just briefly explain the process. That when people, like the adding of people or the deletion of voters from the electoral roll in case somebody has passed away or migrated out and so on, it's a continuous process. So you have to fill specific forms: form 6 for addition, form 7 for deletion, and form 8 for change of address. And you have to give some proof, and Aadhaar is an accepted proof for this normal process. Now, what happens in the special intensive summary revision of rolls, which is something very specific? It happens, I think, once every decade. Every decade, there is a special intensive revision. Now, you know that the slogan of the ECI is that no voter to be left behind, right? But for this special intensive revision, you have to add something. There, the theme is no eligible person should be denied the right to be part of the electoral roll, and no ineligible person shall be included in the electoral roll. Now, for eligibility, apart from like we talk about anybody who's an 18 plus and is an ordinary resident, that is what is generally understood as eligibility. But there are more factors to it. Firstly, you have to be sound of mind. That is, it's there in the rules, it is there in the electoral rules, it is there in the law. But it's not just very well known. This is just something that we deal with from the administrative side. So obviously you cannot put insane people onto the electoral roll. Similarly, you have to be a citizen of India, and that is governed by the Citizenship Act. So Aadhaar is not a proof of citizenship. In a normal procedure, you only have to prove that you are 18 plus and you're ordinarily resident in such and such place. Of course, they the sanity and all, that is from our end. We don't really ask people to prove that they are sane or not. But at the time of special intensive revision, one has to prove citizenship if it is in doubt. We do the administrative the officers, they do their own level of inquiry to find out whether a person is citizen or not. Only if there's a doubt do they ask, will they give a notice to and Aadhaar is not a proof of citizenship. Why? Because as per the latest amendment of the Citizenship Act, there are 3 conditions. I think any person, if you can help me out from there, Murariji, I think from anybody born before 1987 is automatically considered a citizen of India. Somebody born between 1987 and I think 2004. Okay. From 1987 to 2004, out of 2 of their parents, one has to be a citizen of India, and one should not be an illegal migrant. Right? So they have to prove that if there's a doubt at all. I'm not saying that everybody will be given a notice to prove that, your parent was there or, thought. If there is a doubt during a summary inquiry, only then they'll be asked to give some kind of proof. And the third condition is anybody born after 2004, for them, both their parents have to be citizens of India. So this is the special thing in the special intensive, and that is not provable by Aadhaar. Your history, your family history, and the citizenship of your parents, and consequently your own, that is not proved by the Aadhaar. So that was only in that specific context.
Court has said is that it has differentiated between the identity of a voter and eligibility of a voter. So Aadhaar card only identifies him. It does not make him eligible to vote. So eligibility is a separate issue. Also, ma'am discussed about SIR. So yesterday, the Supreme Court has asked a question from the Election Commission of India that this the SIR thing is causing stress to the voter, and it has put a question to the ECI that why can't we presume that the person who has been voting for the past so many years, why can't we presume him that he is a citizen of India? So I think in next hearing the ECI has to answer that. Yes, thank you.
Ma'am, in the absence of the regulatory frameworks, how is it that AI can be used in the voter identification?
A question, sir. We are already in a very nascent stage of making AI into formal intervention into the domain of electoral management. So we are still, so although AI is almost everywhere, whether we are aware or not, so it has massively intervened in terms of, education and, voter politics, election campaigning and things like that. But AI as a tool to, we still need to, we are still, I think, we are we are just beginning the stage. We have, although laws that are dealing with the IT ministry actually deals with many of the laws that will many of the laws actually can we can learn from the structure that we have in terms of digital laws, security, the data, the breach of the data and things like that. So few of the laws are already there, and of course as the things come, we'll prepare to kind of deal with them. Definitely, and I think that is the purpose of having these kind of a very focused discussion. So that will lead to, I'm sure that will lead to some, because when the moment we are prepared to bring AI as a tool to, yes, as a tool to kind of strengthen the electoral management, that we have to think about the mechanism to deal with many of the security challenges that might arise with misuse of the data, or maybe. Yes, thank you.
Any further questions or comments? I think if would you like to ask or say something, please?
Maybe I have got some final message or for us, because the main goal, all of us, should be keep the trust of citizens in the elections procedures and processes. It's my final sentence. Thank you.
Thank you so much.